Hey folks, welcome back to Sage Combat. Today we're going to be talking about why the constant need for rematches are ruining combat sports. We've seen it time and time again. Prospects fight their way up the rankings, whether it's in boxing or MMA. These prospects soon become title contenders, and eventually these title contenders become actual champions. But typically, what seems like a well-deserved victory is quickly overshadowed by the looming prospect of the dreaded rematch clause. What is a rematch clause? Well, for starters, a rematch clause is typically only seen in boxing. It's included in the contract, and it's usually one-sided in favor of whoever the champion is defending his or her belt against the challenger. In MMA, it's slightly different. There are usually no rematch clauses inserted into the contract, but if the champion was dominant during his or her reign, they're usually given immediate rematches against the challenger if they lose. Depending on who you talk to, immediate rematches in combat sports can be perceived as a giant pain in the ass for the fans who just want to see the best fighters face off against each other instead of being stuck in a constant loop of guaranteed rematches in trilogies that nobody wants to see. In my opinion, rematch clauses kill the spirit of competition in combat sports. What is the point of watching a title defense in either sport if you know at the back of your mind that the champion is going to get an immediate chance to get their belt back while the other title contenders are forced to continue fighting amongst themselves until the challenger spot opens up again? We've seen this happen multiple times in the UFC. Again, the prospect fights his way up in the rankings, becomes the champion, and then is forced into a rematch against the former champion. Meanwhile, the other contenders are forced to fight amongst themselves, and the entire division grinds to a screeching, boring halt. In boxing, rematch clauses are put in the contract regardless of how dominant of a champion you've been. I mean, George Kambosos edged a victory over Teofimo Lopez and then went on to lose to Devin Haney in a pretty one-sided fight. Remind me, why did we need to see this fight again? The skill gap in the first fight was obvious. Well, it happened simply because Kambosos was the champion. That's it. That's all that was required. So after Devin Haney became undisputed and the excitement surrounding his new status was at a fever pitch, we, the fans, had to sit through yet another lopsided fight in the rematch. This also delayed potential mega fights between Devin Haney and other stars of the 135-pound division like Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia. Rematch clauses in boxing and guaranteed rematches in MMA have prevented so many potential mega fights. In 2021, we witnessed how annoying rematch clauses can be when a potential mega fight between Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua was derailed by Deontay Wilder and his very timely activation of his rematch clause. He even went as far as threatening legal action, only to have the rematch he had been fussing about and get brutally knocked out in the 11th round. Because of this unnecessary rematch between Wilder and Fury, we lost out on what could have been the biggest boxing match in UK history between Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. AJ then moved on from Fury and proceeded to defend his belts against Alexander Usyk. The rest, as they say, is history. In MMA, more specifically the UFC, we've seen unnecessary rematches like Usman vs. Covington 2 derail potentially huge fights in the welterweight division such as Kamaru Usman vs. Khamzat Chimaev, or maybe Colby Covington versus Gilbert Burns, for example. In addition to the incessant and at times repetitive rematches, another issue that plagues the UFC is the fact that there is only one man that controls who gets a rematch, who doesn't get a rematch, and who actually challenges for the title. But that's a topic I'll save for another video. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm not a fan of rematches at all. I believe rematches should happen in very specific circumstances. For example, if the first fight between champion and challenger was close, and I mean close, as in razor thin close, then yes, we need to see a rematch. Also, if the challenger or champion is clearly robbed of a deserving win due to bad judging or a bad call from the referee, or if the fight ended in strange or unfortunate circumstances, then a rematch is absolutely necessary. But if the fight is won by either champion or challenger decisively, then we really don't need to see them run it back, at least not for some time. In my opinion, the loser of the fight needs to go back to the drawing board and fight their way back up to a title shot, while the other contenders in the division get a chance at the title. This is the way it needs to be. Otherwise, what's the point of any of this?